Streaming. Great. Now I look like the Ghost of Christmas Past or Dale on questionable content. Okay, so I'm Belford. I have other names in other worlds, but around here I go by that. I have been working on a thing. I was hit by the idea for this thing back in February, managed to resist working on it until May, and then went into a coding spree and built stuff. So, orientation. How many of you know what the hell I'm talking about? Okay. How many of you have built something in what the hell I'm talking about? Anyone? Wasn't sure if anyone, or any of you Pavitra? No, just checking. So, by inclination, I'm a text adventure guy. Old style text adventures. This is one that I wrote a couple of years ago. The cursor is poorly centered because Firefox is not perfect, but you know, you type commands, things happen. This was really popular in the early 80s, before there were nice fonts and HTML displays. They stayed kind of popular until computers with real graphics came out, and then around in the early 90s, adventure games started to mean something else. We won't talk about that right now. However, the IF community, the interactive fiction community, has been bubbling along in the background, and I continue to represent it among a few other highly celebrated and not very well paid people. But there are other forms of the text adventure than this. There is, even from back in the early days, there was the Choose Your Own Adventure book, which is, in book form, they were not as good as text adventures for me because the choice-based model wasn't as explorable. I have a long analogy where Choose Your Own Adventure books are to text adventures as Myst would be if all of the highlights were, the hotspots were highlighted, so you didn't have to look at the page, just look for the yellow boxes. So I was never into that, but people were working on them, and a couple of years ago, Chris Klimas came out with a design package called Twine, which was designed for creating choice-based text things. This is an example of one of them. This one is batshit insane. It has to do with the universe being devoured by a galaxy-sized blob of strange matter that's obsessed with peanuts. But you can see it has the same sort of, it's a stream of text, but instead of a prompt at the bottom, there's a set of choices, like in the Choose Your Own Adventure book, so you would type something. This presentation, by the way, is going to involve a lot of text on the screen. I should have asked earlier, can everybody more or less read the text? Because if not, this is going to be really boring. All right, nobody's complaining. Too late for you.
Can you make it a little bigger, like?
I can make it bigger, but I mean, I can. There's a.
Like zoom your browser.
I can, but
There. That's better.
when we get up to the actual thing, I'm worried about this. Oh well, so we'll see how it goes. Okay. So anyway, I have mostly done parser-based, that is command line text adventures, but I've also done a couple of choice-based ones. This is one that I released over Christmas. Still using my toolkits, but with prompt-based stuff typing. I can probably do that. This one is actually a riff on remember the gigantic XKCD from last year, the like bigger than the one with the.
Yeah.
This is fanfic of that. So check that out if you're interested. Okay, so earlier this year, I was reading the forums, and people were talking about trying to do Mool building, and of course, the state of Myst building is very, very slow and painful because 3D modeling is no fun. Maybe it's fun. Even if it's fun, it's really slow. And yet, occasionally in the list, particularly in the Guild of Writers forum, people would say, well, I've got this idea for an age, and they would spew out a description of what they wanted to do, and then say, well, I don't really have the Blender talents to do this, but there's a description of it. And I would look at this and say, this is a perfectly good text adventure description of the world. You should just do it straight as that, as a text adventure. Twine can do this sort of thing, but Twine is a single player model. Twine actually generates a JavaScript app, dumps it out. You can see this one that I was demonstrating before. The URL is just like a Dropbox HTML URL because it's a big blob, right? There's no sense of logging into it. There's no sense of multiple players connecting. There's no sense of interacting in the world. You just click on things on the screen. So if Twine could do HTML, it could do multiple players, it would kind of do what I want. The other nice thing about this system is that the creation model is very, very simple. I don't have a demo of it up because it's a Python script. I didn't want to download it. But basically, you sort of draw a box on the screen, type text in it, and then it automatically, and you put in hyperlinks as if it were a wiki, and it automatically connects them up with arrows to the other boxes that you name in the hyperlink. So it's super easy to get into. It's been a big draw for people who are interested in game design but who are not programmers, because you don't have to be a programmer to work on it. You just have to sort of understand how wiki design works, which is a broader skill set. So I said, okay, so what would a system look like if it were multiplayer, used wiki-style design, were all text, and were Myst-based? So around about the beginning of May when I was working, I put up this journal and stuck a teaser link on the forum, and a few people looked at it and said, what are you talking about? I continued to mess around with it. This is just a sort of fictionalized, in-character blog journal that goes over 3 months and ends with people actually building in it, which astonishes me. And now I will demonstrate the thing to you. So I can turn this font size up again, but when we get to the actual screen, there's going to not be, things are going to get crowded. Understand when you deal with this in real life, the screen will normally be much taller. So I will start at the beginning. If you click register new account, don't use a fake address in real life, because eventually I'm going to have the recover email through password thing working, and you wouldn't want to have a fake password then. But for the moment, whatever. Besides, I have database access. I can fix it. So you hit register, and it says, no, don't do that, you idiot. And it goes bing and drops you here. I decided to use the DRC booth on the surface entrance model rather than dropping you into the Uru world. One of my goals here is to not run into Cyan's territory. So while there are cavern areas, I have not built any Agura areas or Relto or any of the sort of traditional zones, because in previous years I've attempted to contact Cyan for permission to do projects, and I've never heard back from them ever. So I'm just all doing stuff that doesn't require permission. Been very good for speedy development. So you start here. Notionally, you found this place somewhere in your hometown. There's just like a little booth with booklets scattered all over it. This is already logged into the server, although this particular area is not a multiplayer area. So you could type down here. If you type, bit of a lag from here. If there was anyone else in the room, they would see the chat. This is the chat pane, the way you'd expect, and it has, arbitrary arbitrary posing. And so you say, okay, look around, you've got some instructions, you quickly take a booklet link. The text changes. It now says, okay, here's some more instructions. The linking booklet is your quote Relto booklet, although there's no Relto age. It is described over here in this column. Initially, there is just a link to the ferry dock of this district, not of Agora. So you click that. This is where the screen gets crowded, but I'm going to have to scroll this column a lot. Over on this side, there's a description of the page that you're looking at, and in this box is a textual description. And you have a little description of the page. And a link. You click the link. There's no sound, but that's okay. And now we're in a new area, full of things. The general model is most of the links are descriptive. If you click on the link, it pops up a box that shows what you're looking at. The description may have further links. So here you got islands. Tell me if I'm going too fast for people to read. We're a couple of miles out from the central island. You can see the arch from here. The close box. And some of the other links will enable you to walk around. So you click on the table, and it jumps you to the table. Pop. This is intended for people who have not played Uru before, so there's a quick bunch of text blocks about what the hell's going on, why am I here, why are there jelly beans. And this is a linking book link, so if you hit this one, it pops up and shows you the surface. So for the first time ever in Uru, there would be a way to get out. Let me jump back here to the surface very quickly as I can, based on the fact this is a really slow internet link. The changing room over here is the avatar control screen. So you hit consider your appearance. Get this. So you do like. It goes ding, and this is that. And you can select a pronoun, and this approaches. So, any description you want. That's the entire thing. Text makes this really, really easy. Okay, so you always have the booklet with you, so you can actually get back to the ferry dock from anywhere. Zing. Okay, so the signboard has quick orientation, and web fonts are awesome, although I'm still trying to figure out whether I should be using script or script LM. Yeah, tell me later. So you follow the path, fork in the path. I will move a little bit quickly here. So if there was someone else in the game, they could walk past. Historically, over the past couple of months, the population's only been 2 or 3 at a time, so you're not likely to run into anybody, but hopefully it will get more popular. The idea is that the plaza is where people would hang out, and the chamber with the books is the linking gallery. I launched it in May with 3 or 4 links. There's now 5 that I've done. And then people have come in and started tossing in more things. These are mostly very small ages. Some of them are just a couple of rooms. Some of them are, 8 or 10. But hopefully this is a demonstration of the fact that this is not completely impossible for people to work in. I will quickly, what's good to look at? Also, how fast am I talking? So let's try this. This is, in character, Gold Spring is my office age, not my age. It's an island in the cavern, which I've taken over. There is various things. I haven't built very much in it, but I've got a couple of hooks that I might develop story-wise. Here is also a demonstration of things that are actually reactive in the game. If I go inside, and I know I'm cooking really fast here, but the entrance hall is mostly collapsed. There's only one room open, which is my office, and if I walk inside, it's pitch black. You can't see anything. That's not helpful. You go back out, you notice that there's a cable on the floor. You say, walk back out through the doors, and you remember that you walked past this diesel generator, which is not running. So if you hit this link, fuel cans, an additional event message pops up that says the generator starts. And now if I walk back inside, the power is on in my office.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's nothing much in here. I have a few more linking books, including a couple more ages that are like one-room experiments that I did. This was one of my initial test ideas. It's not extremely exciting, but it's a pod age in an ocean in the middle of a storm, and every few seconds, as I delay and wait a few seconds, every few seconds, like, there's either thunder or lightning. That's purely time-based, and it's actually based both on time and location. If you're in the lower level, you hear thunder. If you're on the upper level, you have a chance of seeing lightning as well. Ding.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's bits of description all over. So to look at shoreline, chamber, another thing you can do is when you're looking at a collection of books, when you select, this was done when you select it over there, on the right column there's a link for a copy to your booklet. When you do this, there are now 2 links in the booklet. So you collect links as you go around. You can now click on here. There's also a definition of instancing, which I won't get into, but there are both private and public instances of worlds. This was written by Xander, who is Aaron Reed. He's another text adventure guy who's currently studying interactive narrative at UCLA, I think. And he did this as an experiment, and because he turns out also to be an old-time Uru player. And he has a counter for visitors. Add a member, you click that, and the number goes up. Click. I think if you add another one, it will say you've already added one, but I'm not sure. No, it doesn't. It just lets you add more. I should drop him a note. That's actually something that it could keep track and prevent you from doing it more than once. And he's just like, he's a text adventure guy, so he's of course written a huge pile of descriptive stuff going on, including a sand table that you can draw on. That clicks, and this changes. Okay, so I will give one more example of an age. This is going to be a subtle distinction and I will come back. I will explain the significance of this momentarily as soon as I get to the right place. I'm used to this responding much faster because I have a fast internet connection at home. But it is doable even over, like I've tested it on my iPad over mobile rather than Wi-Fi, and it's playable. Okay, leaf spin. So Leaf Spin is an age with another linking book available immediately. This does not go back to the beginning. It goes to an iron tower, which is, if you jump in, a dead end. There's all sorts of mechanism here, but there's 3 closed doors that you can't get through. And so, like, what the hell do you do? There's nothing you can do. Can you pull the lever? Certainly you can pull the lever. No, you can't pull the lever. It's locked. Okay, that's no good. So you jump back to Leaf Spin. What does one do here? Well, the other thing, aside from the trees, there's a sign indicating linking booklets must be carried at all times while gliding. What? You look at the rack. The rack has big, gigantic flat leaves, which in fact act as hang glider devices. When you put one on, the room text now says that you may leap, and you go zing, and suddenly you're zooming through the air. And probably what happens, because you don't know how to hang glide, is you try things randomly, and pretty soon you realize that you're really low over the water, and that's not so good. You try to go, and you lose control, so that's not helpful. But fortunately, you have a linking booklet, so you don't die. Why is that interesting? I will explain, aside from the fact that hang gliding is really cool, and I don't have to do a bunch of animation stuff to make it work. There are other reasons that's interesting, and I'll get back to that in a moment. Okay, so what does this look like in the building side? This is the player interface. If you go to, when you panic link, you jump back to the surface. There's an option to change your panic location. Go back to the linking room, and I hung up a bunch of balloons over this niche in the wall. This is notionally the place where you sit down and actually do writing work. And this how to link, like, it's a study, it's a one-room age. There's nothing here but a desk and some stuff. And if you click on this link is blue because it's an ordinary hyperlink. Hopefully this is open a new tab. Click. And you go to my initial documentation page, which is kind of enormous, but only because I really like writing tutorials. It's not that scary, and it starts with the step-by-step description of what's going on. Rather than try to go through the tutorial text, I will actually. Sorry, error. Well, I opened this tab before I signed in, so it didn't work. And I will remember the fact. Okay, so I will now sign in with an account that has building permission, because I forgot about that. I have to set up building flag on every player as they sign in. Yes, different font, whatever. This is not because I want to restrict building. I actually want building to be available to all players. It's just that right now the server is still very alpha, and I'm pretty sure that it will, as more people pile onto it, it will reach the point of crashing. And I want it to crash when there's few enough players building stuff that I have a chance of tracing down the problem. Once it's a little more stable, although it hasn't actually crashed yet. Once I'm less worried about it being stable, I will turn that off. That's no fun. No, off. I will set the build flag to be automatic. Okay, so this is the main building screen. There is initially nothing. There could probably be some documentation, but whatever. Click create a world. It goes click. And now you have this screen. These are mostly editable fields, so you name it something. Hit save. That's the general model of editing text in the screen. So the first thing you do is hit new location. Describe the location. You can give it a programming key. This is just the equivalent of the wiki, like the slug name, the short name. So there's no punctuation in this line. Hit save. It can be anything really. And then you need a description. This is just a block of text. So and the next thing you do is you hit this create portal. This button creates it adds a link to your linking booklet in the game. So you switch over to here. This character already had a few links, but there's now this link. There's no linking page visible and no image yet, but we will fix that later. You hit touch. This is age creation. It works. And I can't pull up the screen in real time, but I can flip back and forth between the tabs. As I add stuff, and hit save, I flip back to the other tab, it's in place. As I said, this is a wiki-style description model, so just add square brackets, hit save, and then hit new property. Everything is a world is built out of locations, and a location is built out of properties. Initially, this is the desk property, which becomes the main screen description for the location. But the world can have any number of properties, and they are linked by the hyperlink. So I name this one Basalt. And when I flip back, this is now a hyperlink, and when I click on it, that's a description.
Oh, cool. Oh, gosh. That's so neat.
What else do we have? So I could have a property named Away Across the Sand, but it's easier to have a short name. The bit after the vertical bar is not something the player will see. It's purely a descriptive name. So call that path away. Change this to a move type. And now you have several fields to fill out. This is the name of the destination. I have no idea what pond. A descriptive message. This is text that will appear in the event window as you click the link. and the other fields are customizations of what another player would see as you walk away or walk towards using this link. And we try it, and nothing happens because we haven't created the pond location yet. Go back to the world screen. This has a summary of what you've got. Add a second. Hit new location, and it jumps straight in there. Not pod. Not. Sorry, this keyboard is not Mac. I'm not used to typing on laptops with a numeric keypad. That's not the Mac way of doing things. All right. So now you click the link and you go over to the pond, which has no description because I haven't typed one in, but you understand how it goes. Okay. And then there is a whole mess of stuff that can happen. The programming language is a programming language. It's based on Python. It's a very restricted set of Python, but it's certainly enough to do the kind of tricks that you've seen with changing descriptions, pulling levers, counters. Python is the language I'm most familiar with, and I thought there would be an extra edge because it's part of the Plasma server system. Obviously, there's a lot less going on here than in Plasma, but the nice thing about text is that many of these problems are simplified, right? All of the player interaction is just text messages flying back and forth. There is such a thing as player state and world state, and there's an instancing model which is slightly complicated, but almost all of the multiplayer stuff came for free when I got the underlying programming model right. I was able to design all this stuff, stick it in, and then have another player walk in and testing in two browsers. The one player would see the other player act, walk in, walk out, link in, link out. It's got all the appropriate default messages, and you can chat back and forth. And Blender is not involved, which some people would take as a bonus. I tried to use Blender once. I got a really ugly chair out of it, but anyway. So what else do I need to describe? So going back to the business about the hang gliding. If I'm standing, there's no link back to the starting location. That's helpful. You don't want to forget these things. And yes, you can actually continue the building process as other people are there in the world. There's nothing that prevents that. This can be cool. I think Kathavaria went through a scenario at one point where a couple of visitors showed up and she typed in a borrow and had it appear and do a thing and disappear. You can do that. You don't have to do that. You can also set up that sort of thing in programming. This is more work because you're programming, but it's doable. In a description area like this, it would, if there was a line down here that said Belford is standing here, this would be physically rationalizable. If you're hang gliding and you see a note, if you're hanging in midair, swooshing, and it's you see Belford here, that would be less physically coherent. And it would make particularly less sense if you probably didn't notice, but when I put on the hang gliding outfit standing on the cliff, the room description changed. That was actually a different room. The link for putting on the hang glider is actually a moving link with a text that says you put on the leaf. So if there had been another player there, when I put on the hang glider, I would have disappeared as if I was walking away, and then another player would put on the leaf and step up to join me in a new room. The illusion starts to fall apart when you do tricks like that, which is the reason that
Bless you.
where's the thing? Let me go back to the Chamber of Books. And if I click on Leaf Spin, there's a note here saying only your personal instance is available. The reason for that is that because of all these contradictions in the way the hang gliding action works, I set up that age as solo only. It has the same model as the cleft. There can never be two people in the same instance in that age. So that enables me to go through all these crazy tricks and describe actions that are not exactly physical situations. Another thing is that when you're hang gliding, notionally you're always zooming. Like you might sit and stare at the screen and read it for a while, but in your imagination you're zooming through the air and you only have a few seconds to make a decision. When you're standing around in the cavern, there could be other people there, so any amount of time that you spend standing there is time that you spend standing there, and all you could do is look around and chat as you would do in real time. So shared locations are implicitly real time. Solo locations may be non-real time, and I could have a thing like you're zooming through the air, or I could have a link in a solo world that says take a nap, and it's like you take a nap and have a roll like saying 8 hour sleep. This wouldn't make sense in a shared world. So this is one of the instancing options. If you go back to the world screen, there's this line where I could change this to say solo and swap the world model around. You can also set whether links are copyable. The Iron Tower that flashed past, the link to that's a reward area. As you do more hang gliding and find more areas, you find other things that link to the Iron Tower world. But because that's sort of a puzzle, a very slight puzzle, but nonetheless structurally a puzzle, it wouldn't make sense to be able to have people able to copy that and like pass the link around. So links to the Iron Tower world are only available from Leaf Spin. You have to find them in place and use them in place. And also, it is possible, by the way, and I hit a link to the book chamber directly, so you can eventually get a copy of that and stop all this running around. But I hit it because I wanted it to be slightly fun. Another thing you will find, this bookshelf actually has a button that says edit. So I could hit that, select the Food for All link, and add it here. This is a public bookshelf. Anybody can add links to it. One thing that I have not yet added to the building interface is the ability to create a bookshelf or a linking book. So the way that I have linking books going back and forth between Iron Tower and Leaf Spin is currently not possible for people to build. That's the first thing on my to-do list for next week. There's a whole lot of things on the to-do list. This looks polished and cool, but in fact, I have all sorts of things that I need to put in that are not yet there. But that's the basic model. It is, after messing around with this, Pavitra, who's been very helpful, she was one of the first people to start building stuff, and she set up a wiki on a public service, which is cool, except that there's ads, which drive me nuts. I'm going to have to install an ad blocker. I've added all of my tutorial text to this thing, and there's also a list of ages and random things. This will over time become the main documentation page, and I considered doing this in the Guild of Writers wiki, but Pavitra set this up, and I'm like, any amount of work I don't have to do is awesome. So right now it's here. We may rediscuss that in the future. And this is the one of the two graphics that I have made in the course of this. This is my my guild logo for the new writers, or possibly the new writers. I'm not sure how many new writers groups there have been over the past 5 years. Okay, that's about 40 minutes of me yammering. People have any questions about this nonsense?
Is there any way to like add optional illustrations? So, like, if you had one of these nodes that had a description of like the arch or something, and you wanted to, for that instance, not on every screen, but to have, you know, an image of the arch. Like, is there a way to add that sort of thing?
It is currently possible to have external links that open in a new window. It is not. It would not be difficult for me to add inline graphics, but I want to keep that low on the priority list. Basically, because I want the world to solidify as text first. This sounds arrogant of me, but I'm like that, and I do want to keep a hold on sort of the implicit assumptions of the place. I don't want a world where every good age has a good illustration, because that would be a bar to people joining in and starting to build stuff. So for now, it will be external illustrations only. Similarly, the formatting, there aren't a whole lot of options for formatting text. You get hyperlinks, you get bold and italics, you get the Denis font, and that's about it. I will eventually slowly open this up to more kinds of HTML, but I can't go too far because, like, if in Twine, like over here in the crazy Snoopy world, like, this can include all sorts of crazy shit because it's a single HTML page, and I've seen, like, there's one Twine game that I saw which is illustrated entirely in photographs of Keisha. It's actually really cool. Like the author had fun with it. But I can't give you access to arbitrary HTML in here, because then people would start adding JavaScript inline links to steal your password and screw up the database. That's not so good. So it's fairly limited. On the other hand, I'm trying to, again, maintain a consistent tone to it. Similarly, there's no option for sound at the moment, even though background sound would be kind of cool. All of this will evolve over time, and I'm open to suggestions, but I'm concentrating on the text first. Anyone else?
Yeah, is the text entry line just for chat, or can you do other things?
It
like,
is.
Classic text adventure, like.
It is only for chat.
Okay.
I mean, there's some debugging commands. So you can panic out from the command line if the system is completely buggered up. But no, I'm not. I don't want to involve IF style commands, because the modes don't match up.
Yeah.
There is clash, and there is a model, like the classic tiny mud type thing is a shared command line text adventure structure, and it never really worked. Like the stuff, I know how to build a good text adventure. It's really hard to fit that into a multiplayer structure without breaking what makes it good IF. So that's like the third leg of this tripod it's Twine, Myst, and Muds, and I've taken elements from each of them, but it's not any of those exactly.
What about something like ADOM? Like making it like ADOM?
Which is what?
It's a Ancient Domains of Mystery. It's a text-based adventure, but it has like I don't want to say pictures, because it's not really. It's just a bunch of different symbols that sort of together make it look like you're walking through a world, and your little @ symbol and.
Right. You could do something like that. There's actually where was, I think it's this one. No, it wasn't this one. Yes. This is just the, like, this is all there is. I didn't do this. This was, click, this was Pavitra.
It's actually exactly like ADOM, the little thing on top.
Sure.
Pretty much exactly what you'd see in ADOM.
That's the roguelike model. It would be a lot of work to build that in here, but it's text. You could theoretically do it. You do have a fixed width font available, so you can do the grid layout of display. Yeah, internal maps is something that would be. That's kind of a good argument for allowing graphics. We'll get there. There's nothing here other than like
Yeah.
2 rooms. You can go down and go out. Oh wait, a lizard showed up. I tried this out a couple of days ago to make sure it worked, and the lizard did not show up. Well, let's try it. Okay. We will hit the lizard again. Yeah, the hit point thingy changed. Yay, I've zapped the lizard. Okay, so that much works. This puts more of a strain on the server than the basic looking around, because it's doing more more code. I currently have very strict limits on how much processing a single click can take up, because I don't want an infinite loop to take the server down. I'm sure my limits are too strict, and I'm going to have to tune it over time. It's also true that right now the database is horribly unoptimized. And as I improve the system, there will be less actual CPU power used per line of code.
Brings up a question. You had said, limiting how much sort of programming you can do. Obviously, you have the conditionals for checking if the light's on and off.
Yes.
And you had mentioned the being able to check that someone hasn't already added a marble.
Right.
How complex can you get with that?
Well, the programming language, as I said, is Python. So you've got all your basic arithmetic. You've got if statements. You do not have loops yet, but I'm eventually going to add loops when I'm confident about the CPU limiting. So all your sort of very simple, basic style programming constructs. It's more a question of in terms of dealing with the world. Primarily, what you do is get and set properties. Everything is made out of properties. It's really all properties. Players have properties. That's how you would do the player limiting, right? You would set a flag on the player that says, I have put a marble here. And then once that flag is set, the link would do something different. Like say, you can't do that anymore. And everything else is pretty much, set in text. This can get very complicated. Like the Iron Tower had 3 doors and weights and everything, and that's, as you go through and do stuff, the doors open and the weights move up and down. You can pull the lever, but it all boils down to code that looks like. I don't have any. Well, what the hell? I'll show you some stuff. Everything is built under a different account than this one. Better not be saving my password. So here's all the stuff. I didn't show you Mount Trial, but it was an early test with a water garden style, like rocks and 3 lights. So you go down here. This is a button, and it looks like a button. Like it checks to see what the current color is. If the current color is not orange, it changes the color to orange. It pops out a string of text to everybody in the room that says that the light has changed color, and changes the color variable to orange. And then the room description contains, it starts to get a little bit fancy looking, but this double square bracket block of text gets interpolated into the room description, and that looks like this. So the room description will contain a paragraph that looks like, if color is blue, do this, else if color is green, do this, else if color is orange, do this, otherwise it's white. So that enables me to set up a pretty complicated interaction, which to the player looks like you push a button and the light changes color. This also has a player variable for sitting on the bench. Where's the description? You're either sitting on the bench or you're not sitting on the bench. There's a That is not a room variable, but a player variable, because every player could either be standing up or sitting down, right? So here's another if statement in a slightly different form. This is Python structure, which makes it a little bit easier to read with the indentation. If you're sitting down, clicking on the link causes you to stand up. Otherwise, sit down. And then for additional fun, if you're sitting down, you can't push the buttons because they're over there and the bench is on the sidewall. Little details add to the realism. Timed events, similarly, the structure. I won't show you the code for the timed event in the for the generator because that got complicated. I need to make that less sucky. But click, 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 click. Where's my world list? Laufen when someone enters the instance, it starts running. Yeah, that's too complicated to explain. Basically, it's every 20 seconds it does a thing, and I wanted to vary the period. So every 20 seconds it sets a timer from a random period of 1 to 15 seconds. So roughly every 20 seconds, but with a variance of 7 seconds either way, it flashes, and then the flash thingy randomly picks a piece of text from this list and pops it out to any player who is local. That's basically what the programming looks like.
Yeah, I got that.
Doing complicated things does get someone involved, but I'm hoping that the learning curve is relatively shallow, and that you can start out by saying, here's some text in the world. Okay, now I start to vary the text. Now I start to add more things to it, and then eventually we'll have a wiki full of examples of how to do various things. Yes.
How long have you been working on this project?
I started it in the beginning of May. I first put out the link for the server at a month later. People started logging in and testing it. A month after that, I added the link to the building interface. And then in July, I took a break and started working on things that would pay me some money for a change. But amazing the amount. Like I have this Kickstarter project that I'm 3 years late on. I have some client work, and I put all that off for 2 months to work on this. So, go me. But yeah, it's basically you're looking at about 2.5 months of work here. Plus additional time. In February and March and April, I wrote down a lot of the this descriptive text. Like I was sketching out worlds just in a text file because I was too eager to work on it, and I couldn't justify spending the coding time, but I could take a break and write some room descriptions. So the content is from a longer period than that. But yeah, programming, 2.5 months. The source code for the server is up on GitHub. It's under the MIT license. It's not, if you check it out, you're not going to get a Myst-styled world because I don't want to have, it would be too much of a conflict for me to put up an open source project which talked about linking books and the cavern and stuff. So if you fire that up, you would get like a banner without the cavern stuff, and everything would be described in terms of portals instead of linking books. All of that descriptive text, which is Myst specific, is a customization of the server. So theoretically, someone could, download the same engine and put up a Harry Potter one or something. It is flexible in that way.
What happens if you're standing in a location when the writer deletes it?
I don't know. I haven't had the nerve to test that.
Is there a way for the owner of a world to sort of see what's going on everywhere and interact with all the locations without having to be there?
There are a few debugging commands. There's not very much of that. I would like to add a log feature such that you can see a log of everything that's happened in your world, but that's not there yet. The immediate use of that is error logging. Like if you screw up your programming and get an error dump, that shows up in my server logs, but that's not very useful to you as a writer. But certainly having a list of what's going on, it would be helpful. You could pretty easily like build your own little monitoring room that only you have access to, that like has a big status display of everything that's going on. Another thing that I need to get in there pretty soon are shared group worlds. Like right now there's the global instance. Every world has a global instance except for Leafspin. And worlds have individual instances, but there is no equivalent of a neighborhood instance which is shared by a group. And I think this is clearly something that's important to the social aspect of Myst Online as it exists, so I need to add something like that. And there's hooks for it in the database, but it's not currently buildable. Anyone else? Well, conveniently, it's 5 minutes of. The URL is dev.seltani.net. It is linked on the Guild of Writers forum, and I guess kick that URL out to the Mysterium Tumblr, because this is the time when I want more people to start diving in and playing around with it. That is all. Oh, and the other question that nobody asked is this in competition with Myst Online / Gen / the Shards? And the answer is I have no idea how this is going to grow. It has gotten a tiny bit of attention on the main Myst forums, some attention on the Guild of Writers forums. I don't really know where else to talk about it in the Myst world. I mean, I'll make a post on the the Myst Google Plus group, because there is one. I know Ellery is there, but if there's other places that I should be talking about this, I'm also going to be announcing it. I've announced it in a small way to the interactive fiction community, which does not generally have ties to the Myst world, and I'm going to continue doing that as well. So there's going to be an influx of people who are more familiar with interactive narrative and less familiar with Myst canon. I would like this system to stay a Myst community and grow the Myst community in that way, but depending on who moves in, this may not be true. I can't control the future of the thing, right? I don't want to be a gatekeeper to it, so people are going to be building all sorts of crazy things, and the question of what is central and what is peripheral is pretty much going to be up to the players. So hopefully you folks will hang out there and make a presence. All right, now I'm done.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's any way to tell which ages are doing well or anything like that.
Not currently.
Okay.
There should be some kind of player monitoring. There is currently no equivalent to the friends list, which is another social element that I need to add. It would be good to have a notion of, who, of all your friends, where are they right now? This is important. As to which ages are doing well, I don't know. Eventually, like right now, all books are in the book gallery, which is in the Seltani district, which is my instance. Right? It's my world. I decide what books are on the main bookshelf, and then there's a public bookshelf. Hopefully, over time, there will grow to be many people will have libraries. There's a library age, which I added, which is just literally you have a personal instance and 3 bookshelves, put on anything you want. And people will have eventually the opportunity to build their own. So right now it is already true that everybody can have a bookshelf that they control. If the focus shifts over to exploring people's collections of links rather than exploring my collection of links, then the question of what is a popular instance will be, what worlds does everybody think interesting enough to have on their shelves? And perhaps eventually there will be a, quote, guild of maintainers with a semi-official library age of their own, doing stuff.
I'm just thinking it would be helpful maybe if somebody just wanders in and says, oh, well, what are the 5 sort of best ages or the most popular ages?
Absolutely.
It would be nice to have some kind of interface, whether it's like a sort of like a scoreboard when you first come in, or some other indication of these are really popular books, maybe you want to start here, something like that might be.
You are entirely right. I will add that to the feature list. The feature list is, of course, enormous. Also on GitHub, anybody can add bugs and feature requests. Pop the lights up. I'm happy to continue talking about this over lunch or whatever, but we approach lunchtime.
That's why we weren't done.
Well, recording it, so you can look at it.